All right, so today we're going to be looking into the pretty shocking murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
Yeah.
It's a story that I think has really captured everyone's attention, and we've had a lot of requests to take a deeper look into exactly what happened.
hmm
And you know what it might say about the state of healthcare in America?
Yeah, for sure.
We've got a lot of different sources to go through for this deep dive. We've got news reports, we've got analyses of those reports, we've even got some of Luigi Mangioni's own writings to go through.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough case, I
For
think.
sure.
No question. And there's definitely more to uncover here than just the crime itself.
Right, exactly. So let's just start with the basics. What do we know?
Yeah.
So Thompson was found dead, and after a 5-day manhunt,
Right.
Mangione was arrested at a Pennsylvania McDonald's.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine? You're just grabbing a burger and suddenly there's a wanted murder suspect just right there.
Yeah, I mean, that's like something out of a movie.
It really is.
Yeah. It's definitely a strange twist.
Yeah.
But looking at all the details, this wasn't just some random act. It seems like Mangione targeted Thompson very deliberately.
Yeah, and it seems like the motive might be rooted in some pretty serious anger towards the healthcare system as a whole.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
When they arrested Mangione, he was actually carrying a handwritten document
Oh, wow.
that kind of gives us a glimpse into his thinking.
Okay.
He called health insurance companies parasitic
Wow.
and railed against what he saw as corporate greed, basically driving the entire industry.
And this is where I think things get really, really thought-provoking. He wrote that the U.S. spends more on healthcare than any other developed nation,
Right.
but our life expectancy is actually lower than a lot of those countries.
Yeah.
He even went so far as to compare himself to the Unabomber, which is
Yeah.
a huge red flag.
That's definitely alarming, for sure. But it's important to note that Mangione's words, as extreme as they are,
Yeah.
they kind of echo a sentiment we're hearing more and more these days. A lot of people are struggling with healthcare costs, feeling like the system is working against them, not for them.
Yeah.
It's like a mix of frustration and helplessness.
I think you're right. I think this case, as shocking as it is, might actually be a symptom of a much larger problem.
Yeah, it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's too early to tell for sure, but it does raise some important questions. Like, how widespread is this level of anger towards the healthcare system?
Right.
And could it lead to more incidents like this?
That's a really scary thought. But Mangione has insisted that he acted alone, hasn't he?
He has. However, we can't just dismiss this as the actions of a lone wolf.
Right.
It's important to look at the bigger picture here, at the underlying issues that may have fueled this rage.
Right. And I think for anyone listening, it's worth reflecting on your own experiences. Have you felt frustrated or maybe even helpless when dealing with the healthcare system? Maybe you've been overwhelmed by the costs or gotten tangled up in all the bureaucratic red tape.
Hmm.
Or maybe you just felt like you weren't getting clear answers from anyone. These are experiences a lot of us share, and I think it's important to acknowledge those.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think what we need now is to look beyond this one case and really examine the bigger picture here.
Yeah, I think you're right. We need to dig into how we got here and where we go from here.
I think this case really forces us to look at some hard questions about where our healthcare system is going.
Yeah.
Like, is it sustainable? Is it even doing what it's supposed to be doing?
Yeah, you've hit on something important. I think Mangioni's manifesto, and it is disturbing, it does highlight some real problems. He talks about the rising costs of healthcare and this feeling that those costs aren't giving us better outcomes.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that there's data to support that.
Yeah.
A 2023 study by the Commonwealth Fund
Okay.
found that the U.S. spends way more on healthcare for each person than any other wealthy country, but has the lowest life expectancy and highest rates of preventable deaths.
So it's not just a feeling, it's a fact for a lot of Americans. We pay more, but don't really get better results.
Right.
That's got to make people feel like they're being taken advantage of.
Exactly. And when people feel like a system is broken, when they feel exploited, it can create resentment, anger, and even a sense of hopelessness.
Which brings us back to Mangione. Obviously, we can't excuse the violence, but we do need to understand what may have pushed him to this extreme.
Definitely. And that's where his background is so interesting. He came from a well-off family, went to an Ivy League school, even spent time at a co-living space in Hawaii.
Wow.
It's not really what you'd expect from someone who would do something so violent.
Yeah, it feels like a huge fall from grace. What happened? What could have led him down this path?
That's the big question.
Yeah.
We know he had chronic back pain,
Right.
which can be incredibly painful and hard to deal with.
For sure.
But the details about his personal life and what may have pushed him over the edge are still unclear.
It's almost like a puzzle missing a piece. And that missing piece might help us understand not only his motivations, but also what's going on in society as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. There's so many layers to this. Like, did his wealthy upbringing make him see the failures of the system even more clearly? Did he feel like he deserved better care? And when he didn't get it, did that make him even angrier?
It's an interesting point, and it makes you wonder if someone like him, with all the advantages he had, could get so disillusioned with the system that he turned to violence. What does that say about healthcare for people who don't have those advantages?
It's a crucial question. And it tells us that we need to fix the system itself, not just individual complaints. We have to look at the root causes of this frustration and find solutions that benefit everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about Mangiane's story, his motivations, and some of the big problems this case highlights. What about the legal side of all this? What happens next?
Well, right now, Mangini is fighting extradition to New York, where he'll be charged with murder. If he's found guilty, he could face a long time in prison.
And this legal battle is going to be really interesting to follow. It raises some important questions about how we deal with people who commit violence that seems to be driven by political or social reasons.
Right. There's so much to consider. Is Mangini a criminal? Is he a terrorist? Or is he, as some have said, a victim of a broken system pushed too far? These questions are tough, and there aren't easy answers.
It feels like these questions are becoming more and more relevant as things get more divided and people worry more about money.
Exactly. This case could set a precedent, not just legally, but in how we view the connection between personal struggles, social problems, and violence.
So I feel like we're kind of at a crossroads now, We've got this awful crime, this guy with a complicated story, and a healthcare system that doesn't seem to be working for a lot of people. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think this whole thing shows just how badly we need to have an open and honest conversation about fixing healthcare. We can't just keep ignoring these problems.
Yeah, ignoring a problem never makes it go away.
Right. It usually makes it worse.
Exactly.
When people feel like nobody's listening to them, when they think the system's rigged against them, that's when things can get really bad.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. So what can we do? Like, what are some solutions?
That's the big question, isn't it? And there's no simple answer. But I think we need to start by talking about the biggest issue. Cost tagged. Healthcare is just too expensive for a lot of folks.
Mangione wrote in his manifesto that we have the most expensive healthcare in the world. And he's not wrong.
He's right. And it's not just the insurance. It's the deductibles, the co-pays, the prescription drug costs. It all adds up, and it can really hurt people financially.
So what can we actually do? Some people say we should have a single-payer system like a lot of other developed countries.
That's definitely one idea that's been getting more popular. Basically, the government would be the only one paying for healthcare, so no more private insurance companies.
So what are the pros and cons of that?
People who like the single-payer system say it would be simpler, cheaper overall, and make sure everyone has coverage. They point to places like Canada and the UK where it seems to be working.
Okay, so what about the arguments against it?
Well, some people worry that it could mean longer wait times for some procedures and fewer choices for doctors. They also say it might slow down innovation and give the government too much control over healthcare.
So a lot to think about there. Are there other ideas out there? Something that might be a compromise?
Oh, definitely. There are lots of other proposals. Some people want more competition between insurance companies, hoping that'll lower prices. Others want the government to control drug prices. And then there are some who think giving people more information and control over their health care is the answer.
Wow, it sounds like there are tons of ideas. So what's stopping us from actually doing something?
Well, healthcare reform is really complicated. There are powerful groups with a lot at stake, political obstacles, and it's really hard to find a solution that works for everyone. But maybe, and it's sad to say this case will be what finally makes us have a real conversation about fixing healthcare for good.
I hope so. We can't afford to ignore this anymore.
That's exactly. You got it. This deep dive has been tough, no question.
Yeah.
But it's been important to really understand what happened in this case, what motivated this guy, and all the problems it brings up.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, we want to leave you with this. If this case shows us there's something wrong in our society, what are the peaceful, constructive ways we can fix it? What can each of us do working together to make a fairer healthcare system for everyone? That's something to really think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.